Hey nerds, what's up? I'm in my new house, and the version of my bookshelves now, they can't be together, so this is where I'm filming for right now. It might change, haven't decided exactly what's gonna go down for that, but I wanted to film my September wrap-up and include some stats from previous months and kind of go and see like what's up for the last quarter of the year, because I haven't done my statistics in a while for wrap-ups, because obviously I wasn't filming for a while. I didn't do it last month either. So yeah, let's get right on into it. First off, looking at just September, I did read 9 books in the month of September, which is great for me. I think that is not quite my highest read month. April did win over that. I read 10 books in April, but other than April, I just realized I don't have lipstick on. But it is about lipstick, but sometimes you just don't remember it. Does that happen to other people? Yes, so September, read a lot, and I hit my Goodreads challenge goal. I read 52 books already this year, and I surpassed that, so we're going places. Exciting, especially considering that like from May and then definitely June, July, and August, we like ramped back up in September, and I think it was mostly due to participating in the Bookopoly-thon and the Magical Readathon. I do have vlogs for both of those readathons combined together because I didn't separate the two. So I'll link those 2 vlogs. The first one is the first 2 weeks, and then the second one's the second 2 weeks. So those are all up, and I'll link those in the cards. So I read 3,332 pages in September, and as always, it says that I listened to a certain amount of hours, and I still don't know like how it's estimating that, but it says I listened to 41 hours. My average rating was a 4.5, so perfectly there. I am doing really good this year. I have found that I am doing well with figuring out what books I like. Yeah, reading books that like are exactly my taste for the most part. I've had very few books that I was like, ooh, thought I would like it, didn't. So that's great. And then I did technically acquire 1 book, and it would have been 2, except that 1 I ended up having to just get a return on because it never showed up. But I did buy the first month and getting 2 credits on Libro FM, and I ordered the audiobook of The Girl with the Louding Voice. And then I took 2 books out from the library, and I read 6 own voices, no rereads. Out of my genres in September, I read 2 contemporary, 2 fantasy, 1 mystery, 3 nonfiction, 1 paranormal. So a nice little eclectic mix. Definitely a lot of nonfiction for me in 1 month, but that's cool. And then I read 5 audiobooks and 4 physical, and this definitely takes part in the fact that I was commuting again. I started commuting to work 3 days a week back in July, maybe August. It was 2 days a week for a while, and then it moved to 3. And so yeah, so I have like an hour in the car every day both ways, so 2 hours total. Although I am getting a new job and my commute will be a little bit less. Very excited about that. I read 5 adult and 4 YA, which is always what I'm trying to balance with a mix of those 2, about 50-50. And I do notice that as I'm continuing to get older, my amount is shifting just slightly over to the adult section. There's still a lot of YA authors that I really trust, but I have a hard time finding YA authors that are new that I'm willing to give a shot. And there's a few, but not that many. And then I read 4 male authors and 5 female authors. My race background is pretty eclectic this month as well. I read 1 author from Africa, 3 black authors, 1 indigenous author, and 4 white authors. And then I read 1 debut, 3 books from authors that I had read before, and 5 new to me authors. So it's interesting because I find that I trust authors a lot, and like I want to read all of this author's books, but I don't often actually pick them up. I forget about them maybe. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I do have a hard time like remembering to pick up, continue series, remembering to pick up like new books from the author that I already know I like. For example, Frederick Bachman, love Beartown so much and have bought multiple of his books. Haven't read a single other book from him though. In ratings, I had 4 5 stars, 2 4.5s, and 3 4s. So yeah, all high rated. It was a great month. And then looking at the other stats just for the last 3 months, because like I said, wasn't filming and everything, and I didn't do it for August. Just wanted to give a quick breakdown that will kind of go through this quickly. But in May, I read 6 books, 1,354 pages. In June, I only read 1 book with 326 pages. And in July, I read 3 books, 1,222 pages. June, that book is Twilight, because all I could do was that. Oh, and then August, I read 4 books. I read 4 books in August, 1,746 pages. So, I mean, it was slowly gaining, but until September where I really went for it. And all the other formatting things you'll see in the yearly stats, which I do want to look at. So as of right now, I have reached my reading goal. Like I said, I'm at 117%, so I've read more than 52 books. And my average days to finish a book is a week, which is interesting because it definitely is like a mix of either like 2 days or 14. Like it's one or the other every single time. I don't know why that is. So in total, I've read 22,527 pages this year so far, which is great. I've only acquired 17 books, which I think is pretty decent. I'm definitely going to be buying Empire of the Vampire, which will be on here at some point. That's the book I had to return because it never showed up. I've checked out 36 library books. I've read a total of 61, so my goal was 52. I've read almost 10 extra books so far, and we still have 3 more months to go. I reread 7 books, which is actually seems like a lot for me. I think it was because during that time frame where I wasn't really reading, I was only rereading. Of my owned books, which, you know, they're all on the shelves, and I did just recently redo this, so they're up to date. I own 495 books, and of those books, 54% are read, so just slightly over, which is really nice. I definitely used to have mostly books that I had not read, so I feel like we're getting to places. I feel like I've also done quite a decent unhauling process, getting rid of books that I'm just not interested anymore on my shelves, which is a good thing because, like, why keep them? As you can see, this is like my monthly breakdown. Here's the dip where I only read 1 book. And then we're back up. My audio ebook physical ratio, the green is physical, and then purple is audio. Ebook is here. So I'm reading just slightly more if you combine the ebook and the physical than audiobook. My middle grade, new adult, YA, adult set ratio is pretty nice too. Middle grade is the green, so it's like barely there. I don't read a lot of middle grade, but if you look at my adult and new adult together, which is the purple and the yellow, compared to the orange YA, I really like this spread a lot. I'm reading 32% own voices, which I think is pretty decent, and I don't add the own voices notch on things if I can't be 100% sure. So there might be books that I've missed on here as well. So I think that that's a pretty good spread here. Definitely reading most owned and then library books, mostly traditionally published. And then out of the library books that I've taken out, I've read 63% of them, which is kind of low for me, honestly. I tend to only pick out a library book to read it. But there were a few times, especially during those 3 months where I wasn't really reading, where I went to the library trying to like gain traction of wanting to read, and just it didn't ever happen. So that makes sense. And then I am reading mostly standalone books at 60%. And again, I think that that just really stands to the fact that I am starting the series, but I'm not continuing them. And I don't really know what's going on there, but it's kind of always been an issue for me. I don't know. My 5 stars are great. These are 4 to 5 stars. So again, doing really well picking out books here that I like. And then publication years are interesting. We'll go over that in my yearly wrap-up though, more than anything. Genre, I'm definitely reading mostly contemporary and fantasy. Those are my 2 favorite genres. This makes sense to me. And then author stats, which again, we'll go over in my year-end wrap-up. But that's just a little update for the stats so far. We have 1 quarter left of the year, and I just wanted to give a little update, especially given that I didn't update during those few months we recently passed. But without further ado, let's get into the books that I read this month. Starting with the 4 stars of the month, because that was my lowest rating, I did read The Good Daughter by Karen Slaughter, and this was the only book of the month that wasn't on a TBR for Bookopoly-thon or the Magical Readathon. Karen Slaughter wrote Pretty Girls. I read that book earlier this year. It's real dark, real fucked up. Read this because I wanted another one that was dark and fucked up. Thriller was my mood. And this book follows 2 sisters when they are younger. They're like 12 and 16. Their father is a defense lawyer, and a lot of people hate him for getting, pieces of shit off and not into prison. And so some people come after him and end up having a really awful affair with the 2 girls that are home when they come after for the dad. And then it jumps into like 30 years later or 18 years later or something like that. So now they're adults, grown women, and you kind of follow like where they're at now after this horrific event of their childhood. And another terrible thing happens in the town, and they go after that. There is school shooting violence, there is rape, and terrible events in this. There's also miscarriage and infertility discussions in this book as well, if you're sensitive to any of those things. But I really enjoyed this. It was a 4 out of 5 stars. What I didn't quite hit for me was just, I was looking for just as awful as Pretty Girls, and I feel like this was a little bit, just slightly, just like a tad bit tamer than that one. I was looking for more current awful. This book was more focused on like what has already happened, whereas Pretty Girls was like current, if that makes sense, without giving too much away. But if you like dark and horrible stories, this is one for you. Karen Slaughter in general is one for you. My next 4-star read was Elatsoe by Darcy Little Badger, and this book was for the Bookopoly-thon and Magical Readathon. So this was my Ruin of the Sky, which features ghosts or other supernatural elements for the Magical Readathon. And then this also won the TBR game part for Bookopoly-thon. I played Gavin's Play Your TBR Right, and this one won. And so, yes, I got to read this, and I don't own it right now because I let my friend Kelsey borrow it, but this book follows a girl named Darcy who, in this version of reality, like, it's still the United States, but everybody has the ability to have, like, magic exists just, like, open in the world. There's vampires, there's fae, there's all kinds of different types of magic, and Darcy and her family are Lipan, Native American, and they hold an ability to bring back ghosts, or bring back the dead, but, like, in a ghosty way, not in, like, a back to life way, but it's really dangerous to bring back humans, so they mostly focus on like animals and stuff like that. And what her cousin gets murdered, and so she is trying to figure out what happened, and it was really good. I didn't give it a perfect 5 out of 5 stars, just because I did feel like I was missing something towards the end. I felt like it wrapped up too easily, too nicely. I would have liked something to be not perfectly in a bow, I think. And yeah, overall though, really, really well done. Loved this book. And the art in the book, it has like pictures at each start of the chapter. Really loved that. My next 4 out of 5 star book was Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D. Jackson. I've only read one other book by Tiffany D. Jackson, but like basically every single one of her books, the plot summaries for like the front of the book always gets me. I have so many of her books on my TBR, and this one is about a girl named Monday who went missing. She was about to start 8th grade, and her best friend Claudia is who we're following. And basically Claudia is worried about her friend and doesn't know where she is, and she keeps trying very hard to get adults to take notice and to help, but a lot of the adults are either like too busy, or there's like some neglect going on. There's just like the system is working against her, and it's not really able to work. There is a lot of like parent neglect and also parental abuse in this book, so that's definitely something to be cautious of going into this one. And the reason that this book only got a 4 out of 5 stars is because there was something that like is revealed at the end, which I don't want to talk about in, spoiler terms, but this like other piece comes into play towards the end of the book that I think it didn't need, and I think it made it way more confusing than it needed to be. But overall, this book was really, really well done. I was totally enthralled. It was kind of a mystery, like where is Monday and what's going on and why is she missing? Like what has happened? We don't really ever find out until the very, very end. And so it kept me intrigued. And then also it was just infuriating to watch, you know, our main character, she's only in 8th grade and she's pretty sheltered, so she's not seeing the signs, and none of the adults are taking notice because they're too busy or too wrapped up in whatever else is going on in their lives to notice. And it's so frustrating to read, but it was really good. Monday's Not Coming was a Tower of Rumination for the Magical Readathon, which was a 5-star prediction, and my POC rep, which was a double roll. To 4.5 out of 5 stars. I did read Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This is a nonfiction book by John Green, and of course he wrote a lot of different books. He's very hit or miss for me. The Fault in Our Stars is one of my favorites. It's up behind me somewhere, right here. And obviously everyone knows that book. And then there's books like Paper Towns, which I absolutely hate and do not recommend in the least. So very mixed bag for John Green for me, but this book is a book about the Anthropocene, which is the time frame of when humans have basically taken over the planet. Like, it's not it's not when dinosaurs ruled, it's when humans ruled. So that's what this book is about, and it's really interesting the way he just discusses like our humanity and what we've done and like where we've led ourselves to, and it was fascinating, and it still has that like kind of quirky feel that John Green and Hank Green both give, I think. Yeah, it was interesting. It was good. Nothing much to really say other than that. I think Anthropocene Reviewed was the Ashton Tree, which was top of your TBR for Magical Readathon, and it was a chance card for Bookathon. And then my next 4.5 out of 5 star read was The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abidare, and this book was the most recent purchase for Bookathon and the Cerulean Academy arc, which is a school setting. And I did kind of flub the school setting aspect of this, which we'll get into. So this book is about a girl named Aduni who is living in Nigeria, and she's 14 years old and just really, really, really wants to go to school. That's all she wants. And when her mother died when she was younger, her mother like made her father promise that she would get to go to an education and wouldn't be sold, you know, to the highest bidder for marriage. And he agreed, but now times have been tough, and he decides that he is going to basically sell his daughter off for marriage. This book takes place in 2014 in Nigeria, and as far as I know, it's accurate. I don't know for sure what's going on in Nigeria these days, but I do trust the author because the author is also grew up in Nigeria before moving to the UK more than 18 years ago. So I assume she wouldn't be making shit up about where she's from. I don't know. That's just my assumption. Dooney goes to be married off, and all she's looking for is to have an education and get her louding voice. And so the whole book follows basically like a series of unfortunate events for her and these, you know, negative circumstances that she ends up in, but all while really hoping to get the end result of an education. And it was really good. Really, really good. The only reason that I knocked off half a star for it is because I did feel a little bit off about the fact that most of our like positive characters are not Nigerian. They're from other places, and it just like, was that weird? I don't know. It felt weird to me, and I also didn't love that it took so long to get to the education. I really wanted to see her actually start school, and that never really happened. It's more about like the goal to get there, not so much about getting there. I've got 3 more books to talk about, all of my 5-star reads for the month. The first one being The House in the Cerulean Sea. I forgot, this one also isn't on any of the TBRs for Bookathon or Magical Readathon, but I finished this like at the very beginning of the month. And oh my god, it was so good. It is my favorite book of the year, I think. House in the Cerulean Sea follows a man who is kind of like a social worker, but it's taking place in the world where magic exists. People know about it. It's not a secret. And so he works for this like company that goes to the different homes for these children who are dangerous because they have magic. So it's very like separated. Magic people aren't part of the normal world because they're considered dangerous. And so he basically goes and makes sure that the homes are safe for the children. And he is chosen specifically to go to this extra dangerous one because that home for children at the house in the Cerulean Sea has a boy who is the son of the devil, Lucifer. And so he goes in order to make sure that both the children who live with the son of Lucifer and also that the surrounding humans around the town or around the house are all safe. And so it's really good. I don't even really know how to explain the rest of the plot, but it's so good and so just heartwarming. And if you're looking for something because you hate this author, but you're looking for the same feelings, this one might be it right. This book felt very similar to me as Harry Potter has in the past, and it's really good. Highly recommend. My next 5 out of 5 stars was All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. And this book was my current events / news for Bookopoly-thon, and it was also The Mist of Solitude, which was a standalone book for Magical Readathon. This is a YA memoir for George M. Johnson, so he goes through like his early adulthood life, and he's figuring out that he's queer, he's figuring out that he's not trans, but he does have some trans family members, and he thinks maybe that's what's up with him, but he turns out that he's queer, and he's also from a Black family, and it's about like the acceptance level of not only the family, but the neighborhood as well, and I absolutely loved it. I cried multiple times listening to this book, and it gave me some feelings. Also, the cover is just wow. I don't really have much to say other than just like listen to it. I highly recommend the audiobook because George M. Johnson narrates it himself. The next book that I read was Yummy, The Last Days of a South Side Shorty by G. Neri, and this is a graphic novel that I borrowed from my friend Kelsey. This story happened in 1994 or 1996, and it's about this kid named Yummy. His real name was Robert, can't remember his last name, but he was 11 years old and got involved with gangs and was murdered in Chicago. And it's kind of about just how that happened, the circumstances that led him to that, and how if we could just somehow fix the system of the world, then maybe these young kids wouldn't be involved in this and the trajectory would change for so many young people in areas like Chicago. And it made me really sad, and I read it in one sitting, and if you're looking for something like that, this graphic novel was great. Graphic novels don't always hit right for me, but I think it was a cool format for a story like this. Yummy was Obsidian Falls for thriller or mystery for the Magical Readathon, and it was the Humans challenge for Bookopoly-thon. Last but not least, I think my other favorite of the month was The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Finally getting started with this series. Assassin's Apprentice was a steal-a-book from somebody else's TBR for Bookopoly-thon, and then it was The Novice Path Entrance, which is a book with a map for the Magical Readathon. This book was great. It's a great setup to a new series that I have not yet continued, obviously. It's the Farseer trilogy. This book follows a boy named Fitz, who is the son of the Prince of the Kingdom, bastard son of the Prince of the Kingdom, and when the prince decides to abdicate the throne because he was next in line and everything, the kingdom, the king, the group decide to bring on Fitz and start training him to be an assassin. And so this book follows him from the young age of when he's like found out to be the bastard son of the prince all the way to like 14, I think, when he is just getting started with his training and like starting to act on that training. This book also has fantasy elements of magic called the something. Anyways, he has the ability to like tell, like feel when people are real and stuff, and there's like other magical stuff happening, and It's good. It's definitely like a setup book for the most part. There's not a whole lot there was a plot, but like it's clearly the beginning of the plot, if that makes sense. I don't know. It was really well done. It's a high adult fantasy, so it's definitely slower paced, pretty dense, but I really liked it. So those are all of the books that I read in September. I have finished my Goodreads challenge. I have read 52 books this year, and those were my stats for up to September. So I'll update you in October when I have finished this month's reading, and that's everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'm trying to make videos on Tuesdays and Saturdays. It's still up in the air on what days videos go out and how frequently. There's a lot going on. See you soon. Peace out. Bye.